Alright. Hello, boys and girls, those who bounce in between. It's Comrade Dankey here with another exciting video recommended to me by user FullMetal485. So thank you very much, FullMetal485. I'm already friends with you. I was gonna add you as a friend, but I see I already did that. I will upvote your post. Thank you for posting on my subreddit, by the way. This is the best way to get in touch with me. That or comment on my videos directly. But keeping it on Reddit keeps it all archived. Make sure that if my videos are purged, at least the comments will remain. So, you know, there's always that. So, without further ado, he recommended me check out this epic gamer. Razor Fist, who let's just take a moment to kind of look at this image here. I mean, he's got a trench coat, he's got cool sunglasses, and he's got what looks like a Luger pistol or some kind of, I don't know, might not be a Luger, but it does have that broom handle looking appearance. But anyway, let's just go ahead and check out this epic gamer video. Alright, let's get it started.
Nazis were socialists.
Oh Jesus. Oh no. Full Metal, what did you send me? What did you send me, dude? I can't. Oh my god. Just as I fucking rinsed the Valshian bullshit out of my mouth, you hit me up with this guy. Alright.
Flop that one right on your chin off the bat to frighten off all the ideologues. The party that became the Nazis existed even before the establishment of fascism, though in a greatly altered, infinitely more communistic form as early as 1920 or so.
What?
But the authoritarian colossus we know from the 40s and 30s became what it was in direct response to the ascent of Italian fascism under Prime Minister and eventual dictator Benito Mussolini, from whom I will now quote: "State intervention in economic production arises when private initiative is lacking or insufficient, or when the political interests of the state are involved. This intervention may take the form of control, assistance, or direct management."
Alright, so let's break this down. Because if this guy is about to go along the lines I think he's about to go, he's about to equate all state intervention with socialism, and that's just idiotic, my friend. You can have state intervention on behalf of the national bourgeoisie against the interest of the international bourgeoisie. That's exactly what Mussolini's talking about here. He says state intervention and economic production arises when private initiative is insufficient, or when interests of the state are involved. This intervention may take the form of control or direct management. What this is an advocation for, Rageholic, is state capitalism. There's nothing socialist about this. But let's continue.
This is from Fascism, Doctrines and Institutions, published in 1932, pages 135 to 136, in case you were fucking curious. Outright seizing the means of production is the bedrock of socialism. Marxism.
No. It's not, my friend, because you left out a very important part of that. Who is seizing the means of production? And if fascists are the ones seizing the means of production, chances are they're going to support the bourgeoisie. So, I mean, your whole fucking argument just falls apart immediately. But let's keep going, because I'm becoming highly entertained by watching this dipshit try to go through with this horseshoe theory bullshit.
Even. Incidentally, the book I've just quoted, essentially the Bible of fascism, was largely ghostwritten by Giovanni Gentile, the scarcely acknowledged individual who actually conceived the concept of fascism in the first place. Gentile was a philosopher and at one point an outright Marxist. He was murdered 2 years before even Mussolini was by partisans. The mistaken presumption that fascism is corporatism, so often espoused and re-espoused by so-called democratic socialists to demarcate themselves from the Nazi and fascist ideology their movement inevitably inspired, is based on a quote attributed to Mussolini in the Encyclopedia Italiana, and for the reasons I've just mentioned, attributed to Mussolini in the
said the union of state and corporate power. Using that definition, we can claim that North America is anything but fascist. Okay, that's not what I would define fascism as. That's clearly not what most historians would define it as. I feel like this is a very selective quote.
And for the reasons I've just mentioned, has seen heavy traffic in leftist circles. It's even popped up in supposed history programs on TV and YouTube. You know who you fucking are.
He abandons his anti-capitalism to instead embrace private entrepreneurship.
Alright, we're gonna talk about how the Great War is, left-wing. That's pretty fucking hilarious.
With an element of syndicalism thrown in to give workers more influence, without eliminating the traditional employer-employee relationship in a corporatist structure.
This is bullshit.
That quote is as follows. Fascism should more properly be called corporatism because it is the merger of state and corporate power. The problem? The quote is apocryphal, outright fiction. It not only never appears in the Encyclopedia Italiana, but the statement is outright contradicted by several within the doctrine of fascism, like the one about seizing the means of production that I just...
Alright, so here's a real quote. It says, fascism establishes the real equality of individuals before the nation. The object of the regime in the economic field is to ensure higher social justice for the whole of the Italian people. What does social justice mean? It means work guaranteed, fair wages, decent homes. It means the possibility of continuous evolution and improvement. But let's really break this down, alright, what this means. The equality of individuals before the nation. So, what this is, in Western propaganda, when you see the term individuals, what this means is an elevation of private property. We want to elevate private property above all other rights. The equality of private individuals before that of the nation. The object of the regime in the economic field is to ensure higher social justice for the whole of the Italian people. And here's another, little monkey wrench, because socialism is international. I don't know if Rageholic has ever really read Marxist literature, but socialism is internationally minded. This nationalism has absolutely zero place in Marxism. So you trying to equate this with communism is fucking hilarious. And what does social justice mean to a pig like Mussolini? It means work guaranteed. But work under who, and under what conditions, and dictated by who? The state, controlled by the bourgeoisie, controlled by a particularly reactionary and vicious faction of the bourgeoisie. So, yeah, have fun working in your horrible fascist hellscape, and fair wages, once again, dictated by who? Decent homes, dictated by who? It's going to be dictated by the state. And as fascists show time and time again, they're not satisfied with their current holdings. They need to expand. They need Lebensraum. And so they are going to go outward and do imperialism. And so when the funds of the state begin to dwindle, well, bye-bye wages, bye-bye decent homes. And it means the possibility of continuous evolution and improvement. Those are just buzzwords. I would say the only evolution and improvement you would get is in the military sector, which is controlled once again by the capitalists. So it's just a cover scheme for capitalism to push down real revolutionary movements.
Just quoted. But we're not here to talk about fascists in Italy or otherwise, or how fellow travelers have set about erasing the socialistic origins of Mussolini.
He said the outbreak of a socialist revolution in one country will cause the others to imitate it, or so to strengthen the proletariat as to prevent its national bourgeoisie from attempting any armed intervention. From The Myth of the Nation and Vision of the Revolution. Keep in mind, Mussolini used to be a communist. You know, it's almost like he was a human being and he was a scummy little bastard who switched sides because he was an opportunist. You know, it's almost like he was that.
Mussolini's rise. We have noxious gender studies majors with more hair colors than personality traits for that. So let's rap about Nazis, shall we? Literally, Hitler's Germany, like Mussolini's Italy, reserved the right to seize the means of production should it become unproductive. Hence, the government shall intervene when incentive is lacking, quote I reference from Fascism Doctrines and Institutions. Both Italy and Germany retained this policy, though the cooperation of private industry under threat of seizure and violence meant they were rarely forced to actually employ it. But make no mistake, the threat was real. In fact...
The threat was real even though they never went through with it because private industry thrived under these fascist regimes. You fucking doof. Did you just I can't even fucking form coherent thoughts and words right now. I'm dumbfounded, dude. You literally just said that private industry thrived under these regimes, and then you want to call them communists. You want to call them socialists. This is fucking hilarious, dude. Keep going, by all means.
The 25-point economic plan of the Nazi Party included the following, quote, the nationalization of all trusts, profit sharing in large industries, and an agrarian reform in accordance with our national requirements, and the enactment of a law to expropriate owners without compensation of any land needed for the common purpose, the abolition of ground rents, and the prohibition of all speculation in land. A particularly alarming one was also, quote, we demand the immediate communalization of large stores which will be rented cheaply to small tradespeople.
Again, though, let's look at all this stuff. Absolutely nowhere do we see that, absolutely in none of these do we see that these laws reflect a liberation of the proletariat or in any way reflect a dictatorship of the proletariat. The nationalizations of trusts can be something that occurs under a capitalist system. Profit sharing in large industries can happen under a capitalist system, under a state capitalist system. All of this thing, the communalization of land, the abolition of ground rents, the prohibition of land speculation, all of this can happen under state capitalism. This does not in any way imply socialism. And then I just so happen to spot this one up here, number 4. Only those who are our fellow countrymen can become citizens. Only those who have German blood, regardless of creed, can be our countrymen. Hence, no Jew can be a countryman. So, in other words, this only applies for people who can identify as ethnically German. Serves only to divide the working class and solidify the bourgeoisie's placement of power on the top rung of society. This is absolute horse shit, Rageholic. I hope you understand this.
Utilization of large stores which will be rented cheaply to small tradespeople. A law that wouldn't look a bit out of place at a Seattle City Council meeting. Socialist policies all, which wasn't surprising. Gottfried Feder, who first drafted them, was an adamant...
Yeah, we all know how Seattle is a socialist hellscape. Fucking... Like, what is this reactionary bullshit? Are you kidding me? Do you live in Seattle, dude? I know people who live in Seattle. It's not a socialist, like, it's not like a separate socialist state that these right-wingers want to imply. It's crazy.
anti-capitalist. He was later made the economic planner under Hitler and the Nazis, as was Ferdinand Zimmermann, aka Ferdinand Fried. Reading Fried's writings in Die Tat illuminates the socialistic underpinnings of National Socialism whole cloth. He also wrote a book entitled Das Ende des Kapitalismus, a title I'm sure I don't need to translate. In 1932, Hitler asserted his first act would be an expressly socialist job creation program. Once appointed chancellor, he admittedly shifted to rearmament, but it should be noted that he repeatedly stated this was effectively a job creation program anyway. Socialists often lapse into warmongering to fund their flagging job.
Did you see what he did? Did you see what he did, ladies and gentlemen? He said Hitler said he was going to enact socialist job creation policies, which I would argue aren't socialist if it's under a capitalist regime. Any policy enacted under a capitalist government is a capitalist policy. I hate to burst your little bubble, dude. I don't know what kind of yarn you're trying to spin here, but it's not fucking working. Get that yarn out of my fucking face. I'm not a kitty cat. I'm not instantly distracted with yarn that these weirdos spin from the right or from the left, from anarchists or from these right-wing chuds. You know, don't fucking distract me with bullshit. You're trying to basically equate socialism and Nazism here, pulling a Valsh, pulling a horseshoe theory. And I don't appreciate that, because so far you've demonstrated you don't know the difference between socialism and state capitalism, and you don't know the difference between fascism and socialism. But let's keep going. I mean, he could clear all this up.
Programs. Just ask Woodrow Wilson. We'll explain why that is in a moment.
Wait.
Flagging job programs. Just ask Wood. Anyway, socialists often lapse into warmongering to fund their flagging job programs. Just ask Woodrow Wilson. We'll explain why that is in a moment. Tellingly,
alright, I hope he can justify that, because if he's thinking that Woodrow Wilson's a socialist, that's fucking hilarious, but it's also, like, really scary.
Maynard Keynes, father of Keynesian economics and philosophical force behind most contemporary regulated economies, praised Hitler's policies in the preface to the German edition of his book, The General Theory, which was released during Nazi rule. Quote, "Nevertheless, the theory of output as a whole, which is what the following book purports to provide, is more easily adapted to the conditions of a totalitarian state than is the theory of the production and distribution of a given output under conditions of free competition and a large measure of laissez-faire." Unquote. Socialism is not only married to Nazism, it thrives under it, but only not only and a
the theory of output as a whole under totalitarian state. I mean, this guy Keynes, is he a Marxist? I don't know. Once again, like, who is this guy? Why does he speak for all left-wing thought? I don't really know. Is he as influential as, say, Marx? I don't think so. But the theory of production, more easily adapted to the conditions of a totalitarian state. I mean, what does that mean? That doesn't... This guy, once again, is equating fascist and socialist together, saying that they are one and the same, and this is completely dishonest.
Large measure of laissez-faire. Unquote. Socialism is not only married to Nazism, it...
That doesn't make any fucking sense. Socialism isn't married to Nazism in any way. Nazism is state capitalist, you dipshit. What are you talking about?
Thrives under it, but only, of course, if you consider the father of modern socialist economics to be in any way an authority on the...
Capitalism is the astounding belief that the wickedest of men will do the wickedest of things for the greater good of everyone. I mean, that's not a fucking statement that I would use to define what capitalism is. John Maynard Keynes, I mean, I'll have to look more into him, but forgive me for not really taking him seriously when I have real big boys like Marx and Lenin I could pay attention to.
the fucking subject. Clinging to technicalities while skirting the meat of the matter is the surest sign of a facile fucking argument, and those who purport the Third Reich's economy was capitalist go one further still, ignoring the threat of seizure by government, and ignoring that even what little private ownership they had was in fact largely ceremonial. The substantive powers of ownership, as with all socialist regimes, were enjoyed not by the citizenry, but by the German government. It wasn't the business owners who decided what to produce.
This guy doesn't know the difference between socialism and state capitalism. I mean, I at this point, I feel like I'm a broken record. I'm just making the same fucking point over and over again, but it just becomes more and more evident to me. This guy is an idiot, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know how... I'm getting angry. I don't know how else to describe it. This guy needs to understand the fundamental difference between socialism and capitalism, and he doesn't. So he's confusing fascism and socialism. And why is he doing this? What kind of agenda is he pushing? Well, he's pushing an anti-communist one, which makes him my fucking enemy.
How to produce it or how many to produce. The Nazi government did that. It wasn't the business owners who decided how it was disseminated to market, what to charge, or even what percentage of the profit the owners actually accrued. Here again, the air quotes capitalist government of Germany did that. Modern Sweden, whose socialist soy pods celebrate as a wonder of capitalist cum kami economic integration, has an all but unregulated economy by comparison, and it's worth noting, the Swedish economy had to be unregulated because shortly after the sweeping socialist welfare reforms were instituted, economic growth fucking froze until deregulation began greasing the wheels once more.
All I hear is that Sweden is this socialist paradise.
We do have a bigger welfare state than the US, higher taxes than the US, but in other areas, when it comes to free markets, when it comes to competition, when it comes to free trade, Sweden is actually more free market. But we did have a period in the 1970s and 1980s when we had something that resembled socialism, a big government that taxed and spent heavily, and that's the period in Swedish history when our economy was going south. There were waiting lines to get health care, people couldn't get the pension that they thought that they depended on for the future.
It's almost like social democracy isn't socialism. I don't know if I should laugh or if I should cry over how stupid this video is. It's making my head hurt. I might have to split this into 2 parts because I don't know if I can deal with all this just in one fucking video. It's painful. It's painful to listen to and it's painful to watch. This guy doesn't know, just to summarize, this guy, Rageholic, doesn't know the difference between capitalism and socialism. He doesn't know the difference between state capitalism and socialism. He doesn't know the difference between socialism and fascism. And he doesn't know the difference between socialism and social democracy. In other words, this clown has no idea what the flying fuck he's talking about. He needs to take his trench coat, go back to Hot Topic, and reevaluate his fucking political philosophy. Because he doesn't know what the flying fuck he's talking about. So in part 2, we'll pick up with the rest of this guy's video. It's fucking hilarious. The Rageholic part 2. So stay tuned for that.